I asked you guys for some music hot takes and you did not disappoint. Now please remember, these are real people's opinions and real people have real emotions. There's enough anger in the world, so please don't start fights. You can respectfully disagree all you want. I'll do plenty in this video, but please don't be angry in the comments. Now let's get started. Happy Birthday, when sang correctly, is a spectacular song, great at teaching music theory, capable of bringing me to tears. I 100% agree. It brings me to tears because it's so awkward when you're just sitting there while everyone sings you happy birthday. Saint Anger is done correctly. If you got mad about the snare, the album did its job. Now I gotta say, I am a metalhead, but I don't love thrash metal, so I'm not a Metallica fan at all. But I've never really understood the hate on the Saint Anger album. The snare is unique, it's not my thing. But, you know, it's different and it doesn't sound bad. Euphoniums have an objectively better sound than trombones and should be the standard tenor voice in all brass sections. Okay, now one thing you gotta know about me. I love to joke about different instruments being better than others, sounding better or worse, trumpets having massive egos. And maybe the trumpet thing is true, but I really do believe all of the instruments have a place, even the ophicleide. It doesn't sound great, and especially not this one because it's a bad ophicleide. But every instrument has its place. So I can't say euphoniums have a better sound. They do have a different sound and I think they should be used more. Euphoniums really do have a sweet sound in all registers and I think they blend well with pretty much any instrument. Trombones do have a little more blastiness and they stand out. Now I don't know about euphoniums being the standard brass section because I think trombones do have their place and euphoniums can't get to the tromboniness. I don't know what to say about it. Trombones do have their place, and I think it's right next to the euphoniums. Hymns are, musically speaking, severely underrated. I think this is a great opinion. Now, hymns is a really broad term, and apparently they've been around since like the ancient Greeks, but most people think of hymns as in the Christian hymns, which have still been around for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Now, I don't care if you're religious or not, looking at the music of the hymns, they are technically very simple. Simple chord progressions, simple chords in general. But there's something so powerful about just listening to the notes, especially played on like a massive organ or a really good church choir. They're haunting and beautiful and like they're just so full. There's so much history in the hymns and the meaning behind all of it, and not even just the lyrics, the music itself. It's just so good. Trumpets are not egotistical, we are just the best instrument. I don't know about that because it's not often you hear people say, I need more trumpet. But you know what people always say? They need more cowbell, which is the real best instrument. It's really hard to find good new artists that aren't mainstream. I agree because I'm pretty sure it's just how algorithms work now, you know? YouTube is going to show you the artists that have the most views because it makes YouTube the most money. Spotify pushes bigger artists because it makes them more money. Radio stations play artists that make them more money. So we're not being shown the new artists that are coming up because it's not making the companies more money. There are so many small artists that really do have good music. My friends at Lighthouse Logic, I've played with them before. They don't have very many followers, but they have great music. I will say, I don't love the toxic culture of some people thinking others are worse than them just because those people listen to mainstream music. There's nothing wrong with listening to mainstream music. Those artists are mainstream because a lot of people agree they have good music, you know? Just because you listen to an underground artist with 5 followers doesn't mean you're better than someone else. It just means you like that artist and someone hasn't found that artist yet. Or you don't like these big artists, and that's totally okay. Everyone's music tastes are different, and there's nothing wrong with liking a big artist. Every instrument should be a slide instrument. The only perfect instrument is the trombone. This is really funny. For a long time, I've always thought it'd be really fun if one of my tubas just had a slide as well, you know? You could play all the normal tuba stuff, but then you could also just do slide things. It would be totally impractical and probably not feasible, but it would be so fun. Just being able to do like nice glissandos or just fun trombone stuff, you know? I think it'd be really funny if almost every instrument had a trombone edition. Like, can you imagine if there was an ophicleide that just had a trigger that led to a trombone slide so you can just play trombone on your ophicleide? I'm pretty sure it wouldn't work at all, but it would be so funny. It says, I do not care for high brass or low woodwinds. Like bro, high woodwinds and low brass has that covered. Now I can see where he's coming from, but again, I think it comes back to instrument equality. I think every instrument has its place. Like, high woodwind doesn't have it covered because think about trumpets, you know? Trumpets have a trumpet sound, and that's not something a clarinet or a flute can do. Or think about bassoons and bass clarinets, you know? You have tubas and trombones and euphoniums, but bass clarinet and bassoon have a unique sound. Yes, bass clarinets are quiet, but they're cool, and bassoons are amazing. You know, they're a pain to play, but they have a fun sound. I know some people don't like it, but I think they're a great addition. I wouldn't want to take away bassoons just to add another tuba or another trombone, you know? Although of course I would take away every instrument and replace it with a cowbell. The recorder should be a professional instrument. I will stand by that until I die. I'm pretty sure there are professional recorders, like not in symphonies or anything, but there are a lot of really good recorder players out there.
My name is Richard and I'm sitting in the corner.
I think if enough people get high quality recorders and start practicing enough, we could bring them into groups or make quartets or jazz bands with them, you know? It could be fun. Metal overall can give you some of the best teaching of style and skill in music for every instrument included and has pretty good vibes. It just gets neglected by some because of the satanic screaming "I hate life" stereotype that is put on some people, even though metal isn't really like that. As a metalhead, absolutely. But I will say there are a lot of bands that still do the satanic screaming and "I hate life" kind of stuff. But it's not all like that, you know? It feels like the loud minority of metal, you know? It's so in your face and extreme, that's what people think of metal, but there's so much metal that's nothing like that. It's actually really interesting. There have been a lot of studies on why metalheads can be so calm when the music they listen to is so angry and in your face, and it's because it's really cathartic to listen to this kind of music. I can 100% testify, it's nice to listen to this, you know, loud, screaming, garbled music. And it's like a pressure release, you know? Now metal has some of the most deep, impressive lyrics, some of the craziest drum parts, some of the most awesome bass and guitar solos. It all fits together really well, and there's a reason so many people like it. It's definitely not for everyone because of the screaming and the in-your-faceness, but it's really fun. I suggest you at least give it a try. There's a lot more variety in metal than people think. It's not all garbled screaming. I don't know if this is really a hot take, but I asked a tuba player during a marching band what song his favorite was to play, and he said, "Hey Baby." I asked him why, and he said, because tubas have the lead part in the beginning. If you don't want to play the lead part, don't freaking play tuba. Now I will say, if you're gonna play tuba, don't expect to play the lead part almost ever. You know, we're gonna be stuck with the bass lines. But if you're not a tuba, don't expect us to only play the bass lines, you know? If we only ever played quarter notes on the beat, you know, there wouldn't be very many tuba players out there because no one really wants to do that all the time. So playing Hey Baby is great because we do get the lead part of the beginning, and it's a nice refresher from just playing oompa oompa, you know? We get a little bit of melody and it's nice. That's why Tuba Christmas was invented, you know? We want a chance to shine and play these melodies that we almost never get to play. Cellos should have gear tuning along with double basses. I'm not a string player, so I don't know what gear tuning is, but it sounds like violins and violas have it, so yes, I agree. Cellos and double basses should have gear tuning, whatever that is. Any march where the cymbal just plays every single quarter note should be illegal, or at least the people in the third and fourth row given earplugs. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes for sections of the pieces, you really do want the cymbals crashing on every beat, but not for very long because it just gets muddy, you know? The cymbals ring out forever and you're just crashing and crashing and crashing. It's not fun to listen to, and as a tuba, I'm always right in front, so I'm just going deaf. I can never hear myself. Composers, give some time in between each cymbal crash. The violin is overrated. See, I can't agree because I listened to this documentary song called The Devil Went Down to Georgia, and this kid with his violin, he beat the devil and got a golden violin, which is pretty cool, so it's definitely not overrated. It's a great documentary song by Charles Daniels.
I guess you didn't know it, but I'm a fiddle player too. And if you care to take a dare, I'll make a bet with you. Now you play pretty good fiddle, boy, but give the devil his due. I bet a fiddle of gold against your soul, because I think I'm better than you.
There's only two saxophones that are actually good, tenor and baritone. Soprano is trash gimmick, alto has the proud distinction of being the winner of the Alto Trash Olympics. Bass is roughly 3 times the cost of a 4-valve double B-flat tuba, with less range than the 3-valve. Contrabass has an awful tone blending. It can play duets with itself. Now, I'm not a sax player and I never have been, so you can take my opinion with a big grain of salt, but I will say, I think the other saxophones have a unique distinction about them that makes them good. Again, I think it's about the distinction of the sound, you know? Alto has a different sound than tenor, just a little bit, and I actually prefer the sound of a tenor because I like lower things, but alto doesn't have a bad sound, you know? Soprano, I don't know much about soprano, but it's a little bit different than a clarinet. Bass sax absolutely costs too much, and in an orchestra or a band, it's probably better just to have tubas. But if you're doing a saxophone group, quartet, quintet, whatever, it's nice to have a bass sax because it goes way lower than the baritone. And contrabass sax is important because, you know, ships and trucks, they need foghorns. No, but seriously, contrabass sax is kind of like contrabassoon. It's not used that much, but it's still kind of a fun thing to have. It adds a different sound. And the overtones are really funny, I think. Flute is the worst instrument known to man. Well, I got bad news for you, because flutes are one of the oldest instruments in the world, almost 50,000 years old. Flutes are so simple, so easy to learn. Well, not these ones, but the concept of a flute is so easy to learn. You could have a flute in almost any situation, in any culture in the world, and they'll fit right in. There's a reason they've lasted so long. Also, it's better not to insult a flute or a piccolo because they play so sharp they could cut you. For legal reasons, that was a joke. Bass clarinet is better than soprano. I don't know about that, because you need like 3 bass clarinets just to hear them over the soprano clarinet. No, but really, they both have their places and they're both important. I do think bass clarinets could be used more though. They're really interesting instruments. Rap/hip-hop is the worst music genre. I don't really think so. Now, I'm not a rap fan. If it came up on my playlist, I would skip it as soon as possible, and it sounds like you would too. But there are a lot of people who like rap, and I don't understand it, but I respect it. Also, if we lost rap, we would lose the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song and the Poke Rap, which are both masterpieces. So we can't lose rap. And let me tell you, my hot take is that I think every tuba and euphonium should have at least 4 valves. Hear me out. This Helicon is the only 3-valve tuba I have because I think only having 3 valves is kind of pointless. If you don't know, having a 4th valve on a tuba and euphonium is an alternate fingering for 1 and 3, but it also extends your range down lower. Only having 3 valves feels really limiting to me. This is an E-flat Helicon, which means once I get down to A1, I have nowhere else to go besides low E-flat, which is an open note. But now if I have a 4th valve like this E-flat tuba, suddenly all those low notes become usable. And as a tuba or euphonium, I think it's really important to have that full low range because we're the low instruments. Even if it is just a low-grade student tuba or euphonium, I'd still want them to have 4 valves because I don't want the student to be limited by only 3 valves. I'd want the student to know the full extent of the horn's range. And this Helicon isn't the student horn. It baffles me every time I see a Helicon or sousaphone, especially contrabass, double B flat, and double C Helicons and sousaphones that only have 3 valves. If it's a contrabass horn, I feel like you should be able to go all the way down, not be limited by 3 valves. So there are your guys' hot takes. I thought a lot of them were really interesting, and it was fun to do this. Now remember, please be respectful in the comments, don't be mad at others just because their opinion is different. And remember, have a cowbell day.
I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.